Good morning. This week arguably is the juiciest week of the year in fashion news as 3 legacy fashion brands represented debut collections from their new creative directors. Haider Ackermann for Tom Ford, Sarah Burton for Givenchy, and Julian Klausner at DRIES van Noten. The headlines in media suggest that Prada acquisition of Versace is very likely to happen, and many argue that the Versace collection presented last week felt like a farewell collection from its creative director, Donatella Versace. It is also an exciting week in beauty as Louis Vuitton announced the launch of Louis Vuitton Beauté with Pat McGrath as the house's first cosmetics creative director. I am here to discuss all of that with Claire Russell, founder and director of Park PR, journalist and global brand strategist Emily Zach, the host of my favorite fashion podcast called Just a Fashion Minute, and now a regular of the show, the one and only David M. Watts, and fashion makeup artist Neusa Neves. Now, thank you all for joining me this morning on Fashion News, and in fact, truly, what a week in fashion. I mean, the debut after debut after debut after debut, right? And actually, if we think of Sarah Burton, well, her debut was not necessarily Paris Fashion Week, actually, at Givenchy. Her debut was at the Oscars. Oscars, such a massive publicity PR event. Claire, how do you cut through the noise as a PR guru yourself?
I think the Oscars itself, it's a tricky one for PR. It is one enormous fashion moment. It's literally there on the world stage. Comparing that to Paris Fashion Week, which is more of a slow burn, it does have a big moment at the start. It's kind of, they've got the show, they've got the street stars, they've got the front row, all these influencers are all dressed, but then that carries on for the next 6 months. So people will still be talking about Paris Fashion Week in the summer when we're looking forward to the next season. Whereas the Oscars is just one big bang. And I think the relationship between the brands, the celebrities and the stylists, it's this one kind of power group that is really changing the game. I think particularly where there's celebrities who are assigned to specific brands and they can only wear those brands on the red carpet, it's changing the game. It's making it a lot harder. There's not going to be those moments where small brands can get discovered, small brands that can appear on the red carpet and suddenly they're famous. That isn't going to happen anymore. For me, I have a handbag client. We've been supplying clutch bags for people to use on the red carpet, and invariably they're not photographed with the bags. So it's getting much, much harder.
Interesting. From the PR perspective, I wonder, do you think that was a smart move for Givenchy to make a debut at the Oscars? Because to me personally, I love Sarah Burton. I am excited for Sarah Burton and Givenchy, but I wonder whether that a smart PR move to make a debut at the Oscars and not with a show at Paris Fashion Week. Do you think it killed the vibe or the hype a little bit?
I think the people who are winning, the brands that are winning are the ones who are doing the Oscars and they're doing Paris Fashion Week. They're bringing it all together and they're telling the same story at both. It's kind of having a cohesive message. I think that Elle Fanning in that dress was she's just beautiful. She's going to look great in anything.
And it was an ode to Givenchy, wasn't it?
It was a real moment, the fact that it was unveiled that at the Oscars, this was like the first publicly shown dress from Sarah Burton. I thought it was a really clever move, actually, PR-wise.
I agree. And also what's interesting that Timothy wore Givenchy as well, first menswear debut for Givenchy, which is interesting because bearing in mind now Haider is his bestie in that field. I'm surprised that he did not wear Tom Ford. Tom Ford, my goodness, what a show. I truly think Tom Ford is now the most desirable. It will be the hottest brand. The show was clear success. But did you agree that it was success? Because Emily, you've seen hundreds and hundreds of fashion shows. What did you think of this new debut of Tom Ford?
I mean, it was really nice to see. I mean, I love Haider, first of all, and I think it's such a good fit. It's sort of, sometimes you don't realize what was missing until you see such a good fit of a new creative vision, but very much in line with Tom Ford's original vision. I'd say even going back to kind of Gucci days. Felt very exciting. It felt electric, actually. which I think is, it's exciting to see, both from kind of watching the arc of Haider's career and his work, but also seeing kind of that legacy. You can sort of see Tom Ford was smiling, he gave him a huge hug on the catwalk next to Anna. It was very, it felt kind of like a christening almost, you know, like a fashion christening. So I think, and I thought the clothes were good. I personally didn't feel drawn to everything, but some of the evening wear was just gorgeous. And I think it's, I think we've seen a lot of evening wear particularly that's been very kind of mid. And so this feels like the dial is just going, you know, up, 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 up. So it feels like there's a lot of really interesting shape and dimension and what we're seeing on the skin and where we're seeing it. It's a lot to take in, but very exciting.
And the colors really stood out to me.
Yeah.
I think being, you know, a creative director of a fashion house, the most difficult job is to, in fact, honor the house's creative DNA, but also the creative director to bring that its own flair to it. Had something new to Tom Ford. It's what we saw before from Peter Hawkins. People didn't like that it was too much of Tom Ford. People missed that kind of like newness to Tom Ford.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But Julian Klausner, did he do such a good job as well for Dries Van Noten? David, in your judgment, what do you think?
I think he did a very good job. Again, it's, you know, what we were saying, it's very difficult for a new designer or designer coming into that role. He's obviously been with Dries for a long time and clearly absorbed, you know, the DNA is already there. I just felt he'd elevated it to it was a little bit more chic than sort of boho. I think Dries is very kind of relaxed, and also the collections are so huge. You can actually pick, and that's what the buyers love, they can pick parts of it that their customer wants to buy. And that can go from full boho all the way up to really beautiful, embellished, embroidered, you know, incredibly luxe pieces. I thought this was elevated quite, you know, in a really good way. I mean, that sort of emerald green dresses were really chic. And it's very much, you know, it's still very Dries, but I think he really pulled it off. I think he will get the buyers excited, and I think the press will buy into it as well. I thought it was an excellent debut.
Oh, fantastic. What a positive review on fashion from all of us. Now, when it comes to makeup, I loved actually the makeup at Tom Ford's show.
Oh, my God.
Right?
Right.
And the hair.
And the hair, you look, for me, it was almost like an alien kind of. And the beautiful hues of color, like yellow,
Yes.
greens, purples, but all very pale and very skin texture, like matte. And the lips were glossy. It was amazing.
Sexy,
for me, it was
innovative.
something.
Agree.
Sure.
Agree. Neusa, what else do you see? Because obviously, when we watch fashion shows, we look at the clothes, but makeup and hair is such an important element of creating the look. Is there anything interesting or anything that really stands out to you in fashion shows we've seen now? Milan, London, Paris. Anything else that you see besides success at Tom Ford?
Yes, I thought it was interesting concept at the PRADA show, where the hair was a little bit, you know, how do you put it, dysfunctional. And there was an interesting concept, and the eyebrows were like creating characters, I believe. But I respect, but for me, again, I cannot go back. I'm going to go back to Tom Ford, because as a makeup artist, I think there was an amazing balance there. As a character, as textures and skin and hair, that was altogether elegant and beautiful.
I agree. But I do appreciate that you just mentioned Prada, because that leads me to my next topic. Well, my gosh, the headlines in media are really saying that this whole potential acquisition of Prada acquiring Versace is very likely to happen. Many say that last Versace show during Milan Fashion Week really felt like Donatella Versace's last show. Emily, you've seen many Versace shows. Do you agree with the public that says perhaps it's Donatella's last show and perhaps Prada is about to acquire them?
I think even if that is the case, I think she'll still play a part at the brand. So I think it's very unlikely that it's her last show in like the truest sense of the word. But I remember when I first moved to Europe from the US, and I think I saw maybe 6 supposedly finale Valentino shows. It kept being the final, it was like it kept being the finale. So I'm not sure that's going to happen here in this case, but I think you can never, I wouldn't rule her out. I wouldn't sort of assume this is her last. And even if they do, even if Prada does purchase, I mean, how exciting would that be? I'm personally incredibly excited by that idea. I think she'll still play a big part. I think that would be great for the brand if she sort of stayed on board from a design perspective.
David, what future would you see for Donatella if now all of a sudden the brand got acquired by the Prada group? Do you think Donatella would work well with Miss Miuccia Prada?
No, in a word. On record, I've already said that I think it's a really bad idea. Prada are wanting to acquire Versace because of a power grab. I don't think they want Versace because of the cachet. They want to be an Italian luxury house or a luxury group. Now, if you look at the history of their acquisitions from Jill Sander, Helmut Lang, Church's, Car Shoe. Church's and Car Shoe. Church's is a beautiful brand, historic British footwear brand, but really, where's it been for the last 5 years? Car Shoe, the same. So the track record is not really good for acquisitions. I think if they do acquire it, it's for the wrong reasons. And I think there is no way Donatella will work with the family, the Prada family. I think she's probably gotten to a stage where I just think, oh, actually, I might consult, a bit like Tom Ford is going to do for Estee Lauder.
Don't you think that in this decision-making process, Donatella is already quite heavily involved? And if she was against it, don't you think she would have enough power to say, over my dead body, I'm selling this brand to Prada?
I don't think she owns the brand anymore. I think, when they sold that brand to the Michael Kors and that group, and bearing in mind, this price now is 500 million less than what Michael Kors paid for it. So that just tells you how much the brand has sort of dropped. But I think in terms of what Donatella owns, in terms of the value of the business, I wouldn't say she has the power anymore to be able to stop those deals, but she certainly, I'm sure, will be taken into account. But then, it's money and it's boardrooms and mostly men in suits. So, really?
I understand. Claire, I wonder from the publicity perspective, do you think the speculation, because it is power play, as David just said, Prada is the one that holds the power and they basically would buy it, whereas Versace kind of like, oh, their numbers are not really good, so buy us kind of the thing. From the publicity perspective, do you think it can have a negative damage on Versace, all this speculation that they might be sold to Prada?
Certainly. And in terms of kind of the value of the company, that kind of speculation will always have an impact, and a negative one at that, I'd say.
How would you advise Versace to navigate through this speculation? Should they stay quiet? The collection is maybe a farewell collection. Now this whole speculation, perhaps it might be acquired by Prada. Anything that you could advise on? How would they maneuver this?
Yeah, so I don't know Donatella personally, but what I understand of her personality, I think her final show will be like nothing else. That wasn't it. It would be all singing, all dancing, incredible. So I don't think she's there yet.
I understand, I do agree with you. But speaking of the dancing and speaking of celebrations, well, ones that are really dancing and celebrating, well, is the new team of Louis Vuitton Beauté, with Pat McGrath being appointed as the very first beauty and cosmetics creative director at Louis Vuitton. What an exciting chapter for this legacy fashion brand. Let me ask you a question. Pat McGrath, would you agree that Pat McGrath is the absolute OG, the most famous makeup artist in the world? Is that a fair statement to make?
I agree, and we have proofs of it. She had done an amazing, what she did last year was like, oh my God, everybody was talking about. But in 2007, she did it as well. Her makeup she created with Galliano was amazing. We all love it. And now she did with Margiela, again with Galliano. It's a relationship. They grow together. They trust each other. But she's
That
been
glass
working.
makeup was insane. It went viral. It was such a moment, right? Wasn't it? I mean, I think even people who didn't know of Pat McGrath, they learned who Pat McGrath was because of that glass makeup at Margiela's show.
Absolutely.
How would you imagine a beauty launch these days? I mean, beauty is such a saturated market.
Yes,
It's such a
it is.
competitive market. The first question is, does the world need another beauty brand? And also, if the world does need another beauty brand, how could Louis Vuitton stand out with their launch?
Let's put it this way. I don't think we need another makeup brand and 54 shades of lipstick or 55. But I'm really excited to see what Pat McGrath, I know she's going to create something amazing. And I'm really excited about that.
I wonder, what are your predictions for Louis Vuitton? Because Louis Vuitton, if you look at it as a fashion brand, it's a legacy fashion brand where the clothes are, if I could say, safe. They're not the ones that are pushing the creative boundaries. And I probably would expect the same from beauty, but what is interesting is that Pat McGrath is the one who is pushing the boundaries, who's creating always something new, something never seen before. So I wonder, when you heard the news, what was your first expectation or thoughts that crossed your mind when you heard the news?
Well, when I think about Louis Vuitton, I think about their bags more than their clothes, actually. So I'm sure they're creating something to do with the packaging that is going to be, I don't know, a little suitcase for the lipstick. I don't know, you know, but something like that in consideration of what they're famous for and their audience. And I think a lot to do with the texture of the makeup and the colors, because it's going to be vibrant for sure. Knowing Pat, she's going to do it all, you know, and I'm so excited to try, for sure. So happy for her. She deserves. She's been working with Louis Vuitton for many years, and they have an history, so.
Me too.
Yes.
I'm so excited. Now, I'm going to be a little bit cheeky. You know what they say, you should never talk about other people's finances. But David, what is your prediction? What do you think? What was the check that Pat McGrath got for this creative direction deal?
I love how you think I would know such information. I have my sources. It's very interesting to hear, because I am really surprised that she has done this, because she launched her own brand. Anybody who gets pitched to by LVMH is very unlikely to turn it down. I mean, the paycheck, the check must be extraordinary. And bearing in mind that she probably will have her name on the product, and she'll get a very big check, and she'll probably have huge input into it. Personally, I think that is possibly the drawback. I think she is extraordinary, therefore she should focus on her own brand. And remember that LVMH, you know, they co-invested in Fenty for Rihanna and turned it into $1 billion within 18 months of launch. So there's no reason why they couldn't do the same with Pat McGrath. So it's very, I'd love to know what's going on behind the scenes. Definitely not good at Pat McGrath. There are lots of intrigue. And of course, who's going to turn down LVMH creative director Beauté? You know, fair play to her. I think it's an amazing thing. I just think it would have been interesting to see if they just backed her own brand. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they just go and do that with her? But then they want LV Beauty.
Yeah. Neusa, have you ever tried Pat McGrath's beauty line yourself as a makeup artist?
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Amazing. The eyeshadows are just unbelievable. The pigment, how they smooth, how they stay. She knows what she's doing. Her foundations are amazing. The whole products are very well thought. They last a lot. And they look beautiful.
I think the launch of a beauty collection led by Pat McGrath is bringing its own publicity. Besides Pat McGrath and the publicity that she brings, Claire, what else could they do to stand out at this such a saturated, competitive beauty market from the publicity point of view?
I do think it is pretty saturated, but then I'm sure that they're looking at the Hermès beauty line and how beautifully packaged that is and how the product is beautiful and really expensive. I have to say it was the first £50 lipstick.
Lipstick or almost
but
70,
it's selling, it's really popular. They're bringing out more and more products. So I'm sure they're looking at that going, well, we want a piece of that, don't we? And I think, as you say, I think they might have a lot of fun in terms of the packaging, the using the Louis Vuitton branding across everything, could be like leather bound. I think it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah.
I'm excited too. And Emily, let me ask you, could you speak on behalf of beauty consumers, the ones that do open the box and just use makeup for what it is? As a beauty consumer, makeup consumer, what do you think is missing in the market? Is there anything that you see yourself? Can you identify a gap in the market?
I mean, I think that's a really interesting question, but I think we maybe have to take even a further step back to answer that question, which is I think brands know that beauty is an accessible entry point to their brand. So it's almost, I think, as important to think about that element. And in a way, it's kind of shocking that they haven't done it sooner.
Agree.
Because if you think of Chanel, Chanel has a huge business around their beauty. And I think the people that buy Chanel beauty or Hermès beauty are buying into their brand. They feel they're buying a small piece of the brand. I'm sure for some people, they're really excited about a specific lipstick color, but I think a big part of that attraction is the brand and buying into the brand. So I think in that sense, what's missing? LV beauty.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a brilliant point. I agree.
I mean, you see Chanel, you see Hermès, you see, all of these brands they have their fragrance. I mean, Tom Ford has an amazingly successful beauty fragrance business. Yes. You could argue it's maybe the most successful, or at least it has been. One of the reasons why Estée Lauder was interested in the brand, or at least part of the brand. So I think that's what was missing, is that buy-in capability for an accessibility element for new customers that want to experience the brand.
Absolutely. You may not be able to afford Louis Vuitton bag, Louis Vuitton ready-to-wear, Louis Vuitton shoes, but you will certainly be able to somehow afford Louis Vuitton beauty. What's also very, very exciting, Google is working on a virtual try-on. Obviously, it's something that is backed up by the beauty of AI. And what is interesting to me that, we talk about AI not only from the very positive perspective, but it can also have a negative effect. But talking about it from the consumer's perspective, now, if we look at what Google is working on, where basically you can take a product for Google Shop and basically you can try it on, you can try the different sizes. What do we think? Is that the future? Because for environment as well, now that we're buying, trying on and returning things that don't work for us, how do we feel about this launch? David, I'm going to come to you first.
I think it's a really good idea. And I also think that it could be a very interesting proposition for menswear, because we haven't touched on menswear. As we know, men are very loyal shoppers. They find a brand, they like it, it fits, they're going to go back again. So actually, changing color, changing product, I think they could really do a great thing with menswear in this. I think anything that makes the consumer more aware, but also makes it easier to be able to look at product and try things on and get a sense of it, because that's what we want, when it just kind of get a feeling for it. Some people hate trying on clothes. I am one of them. So, the idea of actually being able to see what it looks like on your own body, I think it's brilliant, and I think it will be really interesting. I mean, it's nothing really new. It's kind of like all the digital thing, the whiz bangs that's been going on before, but I suspect Google have really ramped it up. I think it's a very clever thing.
Me too. Emily and Claire, what do you think? Because Neusa, I want to talk, it's not only for fashion, they're going to do the same for makeup. So I want to ask you about that. But before we jump into it, Claire and Emily, what do you think of this launch? Is that the future, or have you seen it before?
I mean, we were just saying, I think I've worked with quite a few sort of startups that are working in the space. And I don't think it's a new idea, but I think, and in a way, it's one of our biggest pain points with e-commerce. You you really only, so you get to see it and then you buy it and then you really see it. And that's a huge problem for returns and it has a lot of issues, a lot of ramifications. So being able to sort of have an experience with it before you buy it is a great idea. I think where we get sort of whether it's going to be the future or not is really down to, is it actually just a wrap? Does it actually show sizing, or is it just kind of a filter that goes over your body, doesn't really show you how short is it tight there? So I think those are some of the questions I have is it really about fit, or is it just kind of a feel? Is it a look that you're going for? That's also interesting, but if it's the latter, I think it's not as revolutionary. If it's actually showing you fit, I think that's where maybe you could be looking at a game changer.
I think it could be really interesting in terms of how many brands are presented. So say you put in brown trousers, which brands come up and how then you can assess kind of in the same platform how different brands' products are going to look like on you.
I agree. That was my question as well. Is it everything that is on Google Shop, and then everything that you see on Google Shop you can? Exactly the same worry that I had. I agree. But also, as I said, it's not just for fashion. Now, if we look at, they're launching the same for beauty. Beauty, you will be able to take on, let's say, a soft glam look and a product, a lipstick, a shade, and then see how it looks on you with this virtual try-it-on feature that they have. Neusa, do you think that could work in the makeup world? Do you think it can be accurate? What do you think?
I think a lot of people have been working already on that kind of makeup, especially Alex Box, the makeup artist that's been doing a lot of stuff in a virtual kind of way. And I think he can. I think it's important sometimes for people that they have a look and they always wear the same look, but if they have the opportunity to see themselves without trying, how that look, like a smoky eye or a red lips, would go with her complexion, that would open doors. They would kind of, yeah, okay, I like that look. So they will try and they will buy the product. And I think it's a good thing. It's trying different things for different occasions. I think it would be great.
I agree.
Even for clients.
I agree. I have 3 ladies that use makeup, right? I guess on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a very fair question. Do you buy makeup online for the first time, or is it the product that you really kind of need to try in person and apply it on your skin, apply it on your lips before you... Is it possible to buy it online?
As a first purchase?
Yeah, as a first purchase.
I don't think I would feel comfortable if it's the first time unless I've tried it. If I've tried it and I know it works for me, then I'm fine to buy it online.
Yeah, I find that actually sometimes that in-store experience, you just can't replicate that on the internet. It just doesn't work. Particularly going to the counter, it's quite old-fashioned maybe, but it's very glamorous. The girls there are really friendly, they're helpful. They've got all these tips and hacks that you don't see on the internet. So I
agree.
I agree as well. And I think it's about touch as well. It's sensitive, it's a feeling. So you put it in your lips, you're looking at yourself. It's a journey. You go into a store to experience different shades, and it's a different feeling.
I agree.
Unless
I think
you
just
know.
maybe in the makeup world, Neusa, for you as a makeup artist, I think if you can see a lipstick maybe and not necessarily use it for yourself, but just approximately see how it would look on a certain face, maybe that would be a helpful tool, right? Yes. Well, it would help me with styling myself for fashion use, because if I could just go and get dressed on a Google Shop and see how it would look on camera, that would be very helpful for me and would save a lot of my stylist time. Well, and we seem to be very excited about this new launch, and let me tell you one thing, we may not judge, but as soon as it launches, the world will judge. So let me thank my guests on that note, and to you, my audience, for watching the Fashion News. And follow me for more news through the week on Instagram and TikTok, and here every Sunday on YouTube. Click on the link in my bio for details of where to watch, and don't forget to subscribe for exclusive content. I love you, and I'll see you next Sunday. Mwah!